Welcome to day 9 of 30 of the ENFP Reboot, and today we are getting into the second mindset that is an absolute must for ENFPs. And that is, drumroll please, now I'm going to tell a story first, because you know what I figured out? It helps the view time here on YouTube if you watch longer, waiting to hear what this special mindset is. By the way, if you're watching every day of the ENFP Reboot here, and you do want to support me and support the channel, one thing you can do is watch the video to the end. Heck, if you really wanted, you could watch it to the end a couple times on a couple different devices or accounts. That's totally up to you. But watching it to the end is the biggest indicator for YouTube whether or not you're enjoying the video or I am boring, long-winded, etc. Please don't tell me that in the comments. I know sometimes I am, okay? Whatever. That's his life. But there is really a story to this, and it goes back a little ways, and I was dating an INFJ, and we were talking about the future and what she wanted. She was saying how she wants to go to school and become a psychologist, and you know, it's this many years program and everything else. And I was, asking like, are you sure of this? And she's like, yeah, 100%, this is it, this is what I want to do, right? And we were kind of talking. I was like, okay, I won't suggest any alternatives. And then as we were talking, I came up with a few other suggestions. Like, I won't get into too many details here, but I came up with an idea for a coaching business she could do that would help, she could do while she was going to school to be a psychologist, and would be very complimentary. She already had the skill set and the experience to do it. And then when I shared this, she was like, oh yeah, I'd way rather do that. But I'm like, wait, but you were 100% sure that you wanted to do this other thing. Shouldn't you be like 80% sure if you're open to alternatives, right? But for INFJs, and I think she was quite a strong J, in fact, I'm very positive, the world they know is the world, right? It's not like, oh, I'm kind of sure until whatever comes. It's like, I am sure of this. If something new comes, then I will maybe be open to it. But this is the world. Where for ENFPs, I think often we're like, yeah, this is what I want, but I know there's probably other things too, and I'm always coming up with ideas and new things, and it keeps life interesting. What the mindset that I think is so important, and something that I've had it sometimes in my life and I've let slip at other times, because these mindsets are like muscles. You have to use them, work with them to keep them really strong. It's the mindset of focusing on the best ideal outcome you want and working for that, knowing full well that, hey, you might fail, and if you do, so what? But, you're aiming for the best. So there's sort of two ways this can work. One is you have these low standards and you're basically accepting crumbs, and you say, you know what, like, this is maybe what average is, this is kind of being realistic, so I'm going to go for that because I don't want to risk failure. I don't want to tell people I want to do something that I won't succeed in. Or you say like, hey, I know this is difficult, I know this might not work, but this is what I want to do, right? Like, I want to reach for the gold medal. I want to write a bestseller. I want to be the best in the world at whatever it is I'm doing. If it doesn't work out, okay, right? But you're focusing on the very best outcome. In so many cases, people will focus on like a lower outcome. And I hate to use, it's a bit of a dated example, but I remember when I was like 15, my friend's dad told me and my friend, he's like, boys, if you go to the bar one day, always go for the most attractive woman there, because all the other men are scared to talk to them, and so they're the easiest ones to meet. And I have to say, this guy was like dating way out of his league. Like, my friend's mom was, it was an interesting match, let's just say. And apparently he was very persistent and asked her out like 20 times over a month, and eventually she was like, okay. And that was a good life lesson. And I think that happens in many, many cases where if you lower your standards to try to be realistic, then you have much more competition, because guess what? Not everyone has seen this video, and they are also lowering their standards. And so you end up competing with many more people for less of a prize in this middle area than you do if you really go for broke, right? Go for gold. I can give you a great personal example of this, which I figured out during COVID times. So in March 2020, as things became pretty clear what was going to happen and Spain was going to go into a lockdown, myself and Gabby, my ex-girlfriend, we were living in this apartment that was a great space, but it had some plumbing issues, which needed to be fixed from time to time, which is not really what you want during a pandemic. And also no outdoor space, which is not what you want, because Spain was going into one of the strictest lockdowns where you wouldn't be allowed to go outside even to exercise, right? You just had to have a lot of garbage so you could go to the garbage bins every day, a couple times a day. And so I went online, I started messaging holiday properties like Airbnbs and this, saying, places with outdoor space, places that were bigger, etc., saying, hey, your place is going to be empty. Spain has crazy laws with squatters and things like this. Do you want to give us a deal to, use your place? And in the places that were sort of like 2 bedrooms with big terraces and things like that, no one would really budge. Like, they do a bit of a deal, but it wasn't much of a deal. It was going to still be double what we were already paying for rent, and it really wasn't worth it. And a lot of those people were saying, it'll only be a week or 2, then this COVID thing will go away, whatever. And anyhow, no one was willing to do a deal out of hundreds of people I contacted. And then one person was willing to do a deal. And it was on an incredible villa. And if you actually want to see a tour of that and the other villa I'm going to talk about, if you sign up for my free training for ENFPs at dreamsaroundtheworld.com/ENFP training, I do link to some video tours of them at some point in one of the emails. I don't remember which one right now. And anyhow, I was like, oh, okay. So we move into this incredible villa. It turns out the guy who owns that owns a lot of hotels and sort of knew what was going to happen. The main point is we were paying less for that villa than any of the, say, 2-bedroom apartments with a balcony were willing to offer. And I was like, wow, okay. So going for this worked out way better than kind of trying to go in the middle. Same thing when we then went to Portugal, a few months after that. Then at this point I realized this, and I just messaged the nicest properties. I did not try to go anywhere in the middle. And the same thing, we ended up in a place that now we spent 5 months in this villa that now, no, more than that actually. I don't even know. It was a long time. That now rents for $3,000 a day. And we spent 8 months of time there. It was amazing. And all it required me to do was dream for the biggest and actually send out a few messages. It worked out extremely well. That was, again, one of these lessons for me about where you set your sights. And I've seen this so many times in my own life and other people's lives, etc. Now, the other thing about setting your sights really high is you're much more motivated to actually go for that goal, right? If there's something you don't really want, are you going to work that hard to get it? If you set a goal that's a 6 out of 10 goal, are you going to get out of bed early to do it? Are you going to sacrifice things to get there? Probably not. But if you set a goal that's a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, you're going to work your butt off for that. You're going to say no to distractions. You're going to be motivated by it. You're going to have a little extra dopamine hit. And so the mindset that I would love to add to this month, for you and for me, is don't lower your goals. Don't lower your expectations. Think of, dream up the best case scenario and go for that. And then if you miss it, you can work backwards a little bit. That's no big deal. But it's a lot better than aiming low, having no motivation, and then never really knowing what you're actually capable of. I will see you tomorrow for the next video in the ENFP Reboot.